Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation, Kirby. It's always great to be here. And I'm so excited that I get to also be here with Dan Gibbs and many of my partners like Jeff from our sister agencies. So let me try the clicker here. Uh-oh. Let me go back. Oh my God, what am I doing here, Kirby? Okay. So today I'm excited to talk to you about the work that we're doing. You know, I have to say, last year, this was my first speaking engagement after becoming the executive director of DOLA. And I was so excited to come here because I don't know if many of you know this actually. I am the granddaughter and daughter of oil and gas workers. I grew up in Venezuela. My father worked for Petróleos de Venezuela, PDVSA, and my mother worked for ExxonMobil till the former president, unfortunately, got them out of the country. So to be here and actually working about the work that we're doing, especially around severance tax, is very, very important to me. Here, let me tell you about some of our work that we do here. This is all the different agencies. Can you guys hear me in the back? Good, okay. So here you can see we have the Division of Housing, the Division of Local Government, the Division of Property Taxation, and Board of Assessment Appeals, and the State Demographer's Office. Today, I'm gonna focus most of my work talking about the severance tax, which relates to the Division of Local Government. So since 1977, Colorado has been taxing non-renewable natural resources extracted from the earth. This tax ensures that the state can benefit from the extraction, as well as mitigating environmental, economic, and community impacts. Severance tax is highly susceptible to changes due to its dependent on market conditions. And I mention this because it makes it a little bit more challenging for us to be able to budget and be able to plan for the future and do resource allocation, although we do our best to plan ahead. So here, let me talk to you about how severance tax is distributed. So our sister agency, the Colorado Department of Revenue, administers state tax, and DOLA receives 50% of this. And what we do is we give this money to local governments. And I know Dan's going to be talking about some of the work when he gets up here. But the local government severance tax fund is made up to two different components. So we have the Energy Impact Assessment Fund, or mostly known as EIAF, which makes up 70% of the fund. And direct distribution makes about 30% of it. The dual structure that we have here ensures that resources are allocated efficiently to address the diverse needs of Colorado communities. So let's look back at this past year. In 2024, 322 local governments received almost $50 million in severance, and federal mineral lease direct distribution. Another $1.6 million in federal mineral lease school distributions were awarded to 171 schools. As we dive a little bit deeper into this, EIAF serves as a critical fund, especially when it comes to planning, construction services, aimed at bolstering infrastructure and welfare. In here, you could see that the majority of funds, 88% in calendar year 2024, came from severance tax. The remaining 12% came from federal mineral lease, which is, the resources of extractions of public lands as opposed to private property. In calendar year 24, EIAF has served 183 communities, receiving $157.3 million. In 2025, year to date, we've served 76 communities with over $36 million awarded. At DOLA, our mission is to strengthen local governments, right? We believe that to have strong local governments, you need to have strong local economies. To be able to have strong local economies, you need to be able to attract people, and to attract people, you need to have housing. So energy impact dollars really help us. When we talk about all the different programs that we're serving, we're talking about these types of projects. And I'll actually be talking a little bit more today about some examples of that work. So here, we always get a question of where is the money going? So 75% of the almost $445 million went to rural and rural resort communities in 2020. The counties in white, I don't want you to think that they're not getting any money, because it can look a little bit confusing. I'm looking at my Weld County Commissioner because it's in white. I know you get quite a bit of our money. So this is really the big 10 urban counties, but we just wanted to show you that 75% is actually going to rural Colorado. The next slide here, I want to give you some real examples because, when you talk about dollars, that doesn't really say much. And one thing that I really like to focus on, especially when it comes to severance, is to humanize what we're doing with this. So I want to give you here an example. This is a project. It's the Whetstone housing development. As I mentioned, to be able to have strong communities, we need to be able to have, jobs. To be able to have jobs, you need people. And to have people, you need housing. And this is a good example of that. So we awarded $2 million for the Whetstone workforce housing. Traditionally, our maximum at EAAF funds is $1 million. But when you have projects like this that are so crucial, we actually will make exceptions. So this development will create 252 workforce housing units with access to transit and a greenway. Whetstone will offer a variety of housing, as you can see here, from like single family, duplexes, townhomes, etc. And so this is a project that we are so excited to support, and I know the local community is very excited as well. One person that I want to acknowledge is Dana. Dana, where are you? If you can raise your hand. So Dana is our regional manager. I know many of you know him. If you don't, you should get to know him. But I mentioned this because a lot of the programs that, not all the programs that we support really come from community and working with our regional managers. And this is an example of them. Another example I want to show you is, I talked about housing projects. We fund transportation and infrastructure projects as well. Infrastructure projects for transportation. So an example is this $1 million, almost $1 million for Cedar Ridge for their Deer Trail Avenue Bridge replacement. The reason why this is crucial is in 2005, there was a flood that impacted the structural integrity of this very old single lane bridge. This is one of the main access routes to the high school as well as housing development, and it creates daily vehicle backup, and it's really challenging and critical for emergency response as well. So we are so excited that this bridge is actually going to correct any of this, safety concerns, and also to make sure that, the residents are getting services when they need them. Another funding criteria that we have is around solar array and microgrid. It's really to ensure that we have a mix of energy resources so we're not just reliable in one fund. This $2 million grant, it's from the Climate Resiliency Challenge, and it's a 15-acre solar array at the Hayden Wastewater Treatment Facility. The Routt County Solar Project is a multi-phase plan to construct a solar array and microgrid, including a battery energy storage system. Again, this is a project that the community contacted us that they wanted us to support, and we're glad to be supporting for the community. Water infrastructure, and I know I was talking to some folks yesterday at the steak fries dinner around water, is, this is something that we really focus on supporting in our communities, and it's amongst the most commonly awarded projects. We get so many water projects. We awarded $1 million to the town of Colburn for a water line extension to serve a new pre-K anticipated to open in January of 2026. The school will replace a 64-year-old building that is in need of significant repairs, including to its existing natural spring-fed, water system. So this project is going to ensure that the town actually can have safe drinking water and allow for the new construction of this facility to make sure that, we have this pre-K to 12 school in there. And so now that I've talked to you a bit about kind of, some of the projects. I know many of you, I was just talking to some of the commissioners, and a big question is, so what's next? What can we expect of energy impact? So first I should start by saying is, we have a legislative session going on right now. We're monitoring that, and I think, we're going to have a better sense of the impact as session ends, and we're going to be sending communication. But, I think we've talked about, how we definitely anticipate that there will be some impact related to some bills, and we're currently monitoring that. For the fiscal year 24-25, we've actually been able to hold 3 grant rounds, which has been amazing. And when I say fiscal year, it's important to know that I'm talking from July to June. We don't do calendar years. This coming fiscal year, we're anticipating that we'll be able to do 1 round, and it will be probably in spring of 26. But things could change depending on, when the legislative session ends and kind of the findings from that. We anticipate to be able to have between $15 to $25 million. And I just want to say, the severance tax, it's based on market-driven conditions. It can be volatile. And, we have a $1.2 billion state deficit. We've had record high ad valorem tax credits this year, which is something that we're learning also because there was a new formula that we're trying to understand a little bit better. And so we're closely monitoring, if there's going to be more changes, and we'll have more information as it relates to that. Along those lines, because we do anticipate that we're only going to be able to do 1 round instead of 3, I wanted to make sure that I shared with you what are other available funding that we do have. We do know that especially our local governments, are closely monitoring right now impacts from the state, from the federal government that could be coming up with a new budget, and also the state. So we wanted to make sure that you are aware that there are other funding opportunities besides EAF. So I'll go through them quickly. So we have the Colorado Mainstream Program, which provides technical assistance and annual mini grants to support economic development. So we have over 200,000 available that your local governments could apply. We have the Rural Economic Development Initiative, which helps rural communities comprehensively diversify their local economy through projects that directly create more local jobs. So we have 780,000 available for that. We have the Community Development Block Grant, which is a federal fund that we administered at DOLA, and this is for design, engineering, construction. I'm not going to go too much into it because I know many of you are very familiar. We have about 2.8 million available. And then we have also the Proposition 123, which is the ballot measure that was passed by Colorado voters in 22 to provide funding towards affordable housing. We have fund there to actually support local governments with technical assistance for the ones that have opted in. This is 6.8 million available. So please make sure for the folks that are here from local governments to make sure that you talk to Dana, bless you, and other folks around it. And for those of you that want to apply for our funds, I encourage you, to contact our regional managers. You can go there. But just please know that we are here to support, the needs of your local governments as they come up. So I know there's 3 other panel members, and then we're supposed to come up. So I will now turn it over, I think it's to Dan. Thank you all so much.
Really excited to be here with you all. Want to thank Kirby, as well as the Garfield County Commissioners, Commissioner Will, Sampson, Jankowski. Let's give all of them a round of applause for helping to make this happen. I know this is, I believe the rumor mill is at 11th year, I think, that this has been going on. And I've been here for many of them, not all 11, but I work really hard not to miss a year. And it's growing in some steam when I think the first few meetings and conferences were, I think it was in Grand Junction with only a handful of people, and now I think it's sold out with about 300 people. And is Lynn Granger still here? I saw her last night. And this is building some steam. Oh, there's Lynn. It's building some steam when Lynn has a cup that says Kirby Fest. And she was selling it for $20, and I bought 10 of them. So it's like, so it's really, really glad to see you all and collaborate here on what we're talking about. It's a great honor to serve as the Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Transportation. A snapshot on me before I had my current role. I came in 2019, previously served as a Summit County Commissioner, also served as a state senator, state rep, worked as an outdoor adventure guide. I've been a certified wildland firefighter, believe it or not, for 18 continuous years now. And as a kid, I lived in Gunnison. Let me get here. The DNR is a unique department. We're a special charge to develop, preserve, and enhance Colorado's natural resources for the benefit and enjoyment of people today and tomorrow. That mission's becoming increasingly challenging under the pressures of population growth, habitat loss, climate change, and as Colorado nears our 150th year of statehood, DNR recognizes the need to strategically work on natural resources in the midst of many of the challenges that I mentioned to you. Take a look at our org chart here. Our division leadership, we have 6 different divisions in the DNR with responsibilities and oversight over a wide range of issues and topics. Last February 2024, Michael Cunningham became the head of our Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety. Next, we have Energy and Carbon Management Commission. You all heard from Director Julie Murphy yesterday. She may be here too right now. But we also have a lot of our ECMC staff, including some of our commissioners, Mesner, Cross, and Ackerman here with us today. So thank you for your leadership and participating in this conference. We have our state land board. We're currently going over having some changes. Our division director, Bill Ryan, retired after 14 years. Bill was definitely a rock star. We had record-breaking profits to help K-12 education during his 14 years of leadership. And I really appreciate Nick Massey stepping up. He was the deputy before. He's our acting director right now. We're in the process of finalizing who's going to get hired as we search for a permanent director for that. Colorado Parks and Wildlife continues to be led by Director Davis. Where's Director Davis? You're going to hear from him after me, but he's doing just tremendous work at Parks and Wildlife. We also have quite a few CPW staff. I know Brian McGee's here and some others. So Jeff, thanks for having your team here participate as well. Water Conservation Board continues to be led by Lauren Riss. Finally, our Division of Water Resources is led by Jason Ullman. He has a dual role in state government as the state engineer as well as the director of water resources. We have our 5 strategic priorities that we work on for the DNR, including a whole bunch of other topics, but advancing biodiversity, balanced conservation and recreation, facilitating energy transition, enhancing tribal engagement, and strengthening climate resilience. And a lot of these we work together with you all as partners in this room. Take a look at our budget here. As you're probably aware, the General Assembly is still in session, and the state is working to finalize the budget. And the House passed a version, the Senate passed a version, so now they're what's called the conferees, and they're working to close the budget deficit. So the long bill, once it's signed by the governor, we're expecting to see $476 million for the DNR for fiscal year 25-26. Our budget supports a little over 1,800 full-time folks at the DNR, but when you look at part-time and seasonal, we have well above 3,000 people. We're a heavily cash-funded department with about 80% of our budget on average supported by revenues from such things as fees, registration, license sales, and severance tax. Only about 12% of our budget comes from general fund. Let's see. And then we also received funding for water resources. We're classifying 36 water commissioners positions. And then our state forest service, we have actually new this year, the state forest service is actually housed in Colorado State University. But we're bringing $10 million of their budget within the DNR to better reflect kind of the work that they do on forest health and to have better collaboration overall. So that's been a real positive here. Take a look at our legislative priorities here. So in addition to some of our budget priorities, our legislative items, we have 6 different pieces. Every year, as I think many of you know, we have our water projects bill, and species conservation bill, but then we have a couple energy-related bills, HB 1165 and Senate Bill 54, which I'll talk to you just about in just a moment. But Senate Bill 168 is a bill that strengthens CPW's ability to tackle wildlife trafficking in and out of Colorado. This bill positions CPW to increase research on biological and ecological impacts of wildlife trafficking, explicitly define and set forth penalties for wildlife trafficking, and enforcement capacity. We have HB 1163 proposes to offer free access to all Colorado state parks for those enrolled members of Southern Ute and Ute Mountain Ute Indian tribes. Next, many of you know water supply forecasting, measurement, and snowpack and floodplain mapping are really critical to water management in Colorado. So that's, we're working on a bill, HB 1115, that deals with that really positions Colorado Water Conservation Board to be the leader on measuring snowpack in Colorado. There's a saying in water that, you can't manage what you can't measure, and this bill will really help us, measure what we have for predicting what the snowpack and what the water runoffs will look like. We have Senate Bill 49. That's a bill to reauthorize the Habitat Stamp Program. That's a bill that's near and dear to my heart. I worked on the first iteration of that bill, but so far the program has protected almost 300,000 acres of critical wildlife habitat and provide wildlife-related recreational access to more than 146,000 acres since the program started in 2006. And then finally we have HB 1014. That's a bill that make progress improvements and streamline administrative responsibilities within the Division of Water Resources related to well permit and permitting requirements for bedrock aquifer wells. So we're excited about all those related bills. Now I want to turn to the energy-related bills. We first have HB 1165. This is a bill to support the carbon sequestration and geothermal development in Colorado. So this bill will create a process for long-term stewardship of carbon dioxide storage sites to ensure projects are adequately monitored and managed for site closure. We're proposing to establish a new enterprise funded by a fee on geologic storage operators to address long-term stewardship of CCS sites after they've successfully closed. This approach is similar to the approach used in other states and is designed to provide certainty of carbon sequestration operators and protect state payers from the risk of having to take on responsibility for the sites in the future. The bill will also implement recommendations from the geothermal regulatory study that ECMC did in partnership with our Division of Water Resources. Next, we have Senate Bill 54. I just want to highlight this quickly. So this is intended to facilitate the cleanup of the abandoned mine waste piles. This also creates a new permitting towards reclamation projects that are currently regulated under new mining operations. This bill also allows Colorado to become a full member state to the Interstate Mining Compact Commission and clean up statutory provisions. This is kind of a state equivalency to, at the federal level, they've been discussing for many years the Good Samaritan bills that allow nonprofits to go in and clean up some old mine locations. I live in Summit County, and we have a lot of these, locations where, sometimes the toxic waters from the 1800s flow into the stream. So this is our way in the state of Colorado to work towards cleaning up some of that areas. Next, I want to just talk briefly about new endeavor we're working on called the Colorado Outdoor Strategy. I know everyone in the room here really cares deeply and is committed to the stewardship of Colorado's natural resources. So part of that effort involves improved coordination to support climate resilient conservation and restoration and sustainable outdoor recreation and a coordinated planning and funding effort. So CPW, in coordination with GOCO, DNR, and the Governor's Office, will be officially launching the finalization of this Colorado Outdoor Strategy at our annual Partners in the Outdoors Conference in Colorado Springs next week. But super excited about this, and just think it's very similar to like the Colorado Water Plan, where it's locally driven, and we're really excited about this. And then next, you know, many of you probably know we're about 70% snowpack in the state of Colorado. And in my opinion, we're one lightning strike, one unattended campfire away from Colorado's next mega fire. I mentioned earlier, I'm a longtime wildland firefighter, and I'm personally on pins and needles right now thinking of what our summertime may look like. But within the Department of Natural Resources, we have this amazing program called the Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Program. We actually created it after the 2020 wildfire season. But in recent years, our COSWAP program has funded over 17 million projects of landscape resilient activities and $9 million of workforce development programs. So we team up with Colorado Youth Corps. We also team up with Department of Corrections SWIFT crews, so folks that are incarcerated that are learning a trade how to be a firefighter, go out and do proactive work. So for the local government folks, I know there's a lot of county commissioners here. Please, hopefully you're familiar with the COSWAP program, and literally there's no match for this. If you have a project that meets our criteria, we'll show up to your back door and we'll do the work for you and not send you a bill, which is very unique. And just closing, really thank you for this opportunity to be here. Kirby, you know, I know it takes a lot of work. Where are you? Thank you so much for, you know, helping to put together this conference. I know it takes a lot of work to pull this off. And again, I'm just really grateful to be here, and thanks so much. Thanks.
Oh, that's for the slides. Good morning, everyone. Jeff Davis, Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I've been made aware there's a new ground rule for questions to the panel. If you're a former CPW employee that's also a former state senator and now a county commissioner, you're not allowed to ask CPW's director about wild canids in Colorado. So Jeff Davis, I go to so many meetings and hear about the deep roots of folks in Colorado, and I'm really, as I get around the state and get to know the people of the state, I'm very jealous that I am not able to say I'm a 4th or 5th generation Coloradan. Hopefully, I'll continue to persist in this beautiful state that we have and all its natural beauty and abundance here. I am from Washington State, and that is not, as you all know, a big oil and gas producing state. It is a big renewable energy state, lots of renewable energy policies there, and so I have a little bit of experience in working through how to avoid, minimize, and mitigate the impacts of renewable energy. And as you all know, we have some excellent staff at CPW that you all work with, whether it be through local governments and our technical support to you all and the industry for sure. Very strong partner. And as Maria said, like for me, there's the Front Range in Denver and economic diversity, and it's always on my mind. How do we make sure that rural Colorado stays healthy, economically diverse, and can maintain the communities that rural Colorado needs and wants moving forward. I am a wildlife biologist, I apologize. And I'm blessed to be in this position at Colorado Parks and Wildlife with what I would argue is the best mission in the country for an agency like ours, because it says conserve wildlife, provide enjoyable and sustainable outdoor recreation, and run a quality state park system. And our parks are a gem. Hopefully they're a strong contributor economically to the local governments and local communities, including urban communities in our case. And our parks are a place where our whole mission is carried out in a geographic area. So I feel this is a lifetime privilege and honor for me to serve all of you and to work side by side with the quality staff at Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I mean, really, look at that. That is phenomenal. So I'll go quickly through. I heard Kirby has a really long hook and will pull me right off this stage. I'm more fragile as I age. So I'll go quickly through some of the work that we're working on just so folks have an update. And again, if you have real in-depth technical questions, we have two of our experts here in the audience that can help with answering those questions. So 212, that's a study around renewable energy. CPW plays a pretty prominent role in that study in saying kind of how do we plan to avoid and minimize and mitigate the impacts of renewable energy on wildlife resources here in Colorado. Big thing, we got some FTEs out of that, and one of those is a statewide energy coordinator so that we have a dedicated statewide policy person involved in the development, the consideration of those policies, as well as a liaison to ECMC. And we got 2 new regional renewable energy FTEs. And so that's really important to me because I know how hard our existing energy, regional energy liaisons have to work. And we definitely don't want to keep piling on the plate so that they can't continue to provide the superior customer service that you all deserve. HPH, I got here and learned how that process worked. I think we were in the midst of last year's Southwest region update. I can't say thank you enough to those things can be impactful. And what I'm learning very quickly here in Colorado is that even the tough stuff, we might not always agree on every aspect, but there's a lot of pride in sticking together, working together to get through those difficult situations. So we did have a successful 2025 map update process. Again, that was in the Southwest region. Those maps were approved by ECMC in February, and they're due to go active here April 30th. SB 230. This one is, I'm sure folks are still like, what is going to be the result of that negotiated bill that will essentially assess fees? Much appreciation to the industry and other stakeholders for working together. I think this is going to be a huge injection of resources that we can work together to put on the ground. We're working with ECMC on just kind of what's the process for setting those fees moving forward. And maybe folks do or don't know this, but about 20% of the revenue from those fees goes to CPW, essentially to mitigate additional wildlife impacts from operations. And those fees are set to start July 1st for the collection. I think the really important piece to me is the 7 buckets of investment and making sure that as we start to be able to see what sort of revenue we might see, that we're working with stakeholders to help us with our prioritization of the types of projects. And I think we're going to need to lean very heavily on our partners in grants so that we can get the money out and get it on the ground as quickly as possible. And I think that's important to industry too, that they see those monies going to the things that are important to them as well. Pollinators, rare plants. Anytime an agency says, hey, what about some new authority? Usually the reaction is, wait, what? And how is that going to potentially hurt me? Again, this is another one I think the partners and stakeholders really work together to make sure that that authority given to CPW was important and was collaborative and was going to work to help advance conservation here in Colorado. So we have a new program supervisor. They were hired in November. And then we have the lead rare plant and pollinator program leads starting this month. Obviously, it'll take us some time to further develop that program. To be very clear, this is not a regulatory authority. This is really just CPW trying to get a better handle on ecosystem health and how to connect those. Obviously, folks can voluntarily take conservation actions, and that's where some of our staff will be helping them to identify the technical components of what conservation could look like. But again, that'll be voluntary conservation. We have been working on, and I know we've done public engagement and stakeholder engagement on this one. This is a statewide habitat conservation and connectivity plan. The goal really is, where are the most critical areas for us to conserve and connect? Especially those species that are relatively wide-ranging and or are going to be impacted by changing climatic conditions. So this plan really is focused on strategic guidance, essentially, to conserve, enhance, and connect those landscapes, as I mentioned. And this final report is anticipated out here shortly, spring of 2025. Lastly, this one's a really important one to CPW and conservation partners for sure. Our existing plan is from 2015. These are required to be updated every 10 years by Congress. And essentially, you need to have a state wildlife action plan if you're going to receive your federal funding. So really important to us to make sure that we continue to get that federal funding in so that we can continue to provide the services and opportunities that Coloradans expect out of the agency. These really are kind of a blueprint for what are the population status and trends, which species do we think are of greatest conservation need for a whole host of reasons. And then maybe equally as important this time around, we're realizing there's a lot of species that we have little to no data on. And so there's a new category, species of greatest information need. And if you have ideas about those particular species or information that you think we need, I think we have a questionnaire open until May 15th on that. We've been working with the commission on that. I think our draft State Wildlife Action Plan goes in front of the commission in August. It's due to the Fish and Wildlife Service September 30th. And once obviously that plan is done, then we shift into implementation. So with that, I will hand it over to the next person, Stefanie Shoup from CDPHE.
All right, good morning, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the last couple of days and the steak fry last night. It's always a fun time to come out here to beautiful Western Colorado, and I really enjoy and appreciate being invited to come and speak with you all today a little bit about what's going on in the Air Pollution Control Division. I don't have slides for you all, so you just get to hear me talk a little bit. But one of the things that I think we can offer you, I guess, for the next couple of years is maybe some regulatory stability and certainty over what's coming as compared to maybe what's happening at the federal level. Our intention is not really to change course at this point in time. We've put in a lot of rules. You've seen that we really just want to work through implementing a lot of those rules, working through the issues with all of you. And so that's what we're really going to be focused on over the next few years. And what I want to maybe stress to all of you that you may not know about is that we've had over a dozen individual countries come to Colorado or reach out to us to talk to us about what you all do. Because you are an international model for reducing air emissions and still being successful. And I really want to stress how amazing of a story that is for all of the work and ingenuity and creativity of the people in this room that you all have employed to be able to show that you can be successful in oil and gas and reduce methane emissions and be conscious of environmental impacts and come out and be the kind of international success that we all are. So I'm just really proud to be a part of that. I hope that you are proud to be a part of that too. I know that's not maybe a story you hear very often about what's happening on this kind of international level. But it's true that Aaron Ray, who's going to be speaking up here in a minute, he and I have had those conversations over and over and over again. We've been invited to those countries to talk to their regulators about what it is that you do and what the creativity and what the technological advances you guys have come up with. So the things that we're going to be working on over the next few years, obviously we've got greenhouse gas intensity rules that are taking effect in 2025. So we'll be looking through that for next year to understand how operators are doing. I know that there are some very, very small operators that we've already had some conversations about related to greenhouse gas intensity. So we'll continue to have those conversations and kind of work through the issues. We've got NOx intensity, which is, frankly, as of last year, was a huge success story for us in terms of reducing NOx emissions in the ozone non-attainment area during the summer months. And so that's a tremendous success and something that we really will continue working on rolling out. We are continuing our efforts on our measurement campaigns for methane. And that is through a lot of interactions that we've had with academic organizations, relationships that we've been building, and also all of the work that you're doing and the willingness that you have had to engage with those academics, to share data, to understand what's happening in the field so that we can make better policy decisions when we are trying to create regulations to reduce emissions instead of creating things that may or may not work. That's what we want with these measurement campaigns, and that's why your participation in them is so incredibly critical. Another study that we're actually going to be looking at here in the near term, in the next couple of years, is looking at enclosed combustion devices. The ECMC was willing to put some of the Martinez-Irwin funds towards studying the ongoing control efficiency from enclosed combustion devices so that we can feel certain that they are operating as they are supposed to over time, and that we can maybe have a little less reliance on stack testing as our only mechanism to really understand control efficiency, because stack testing, as you all know, is not always the right way to understand control efficiency from ECDs. And so that's one thing that we want to move forward with. We're also going to be looking at not just oil and gas. We're going to be looking at coal mines. We're going to be looking at landfills. You know, we want to understand methane emissions across the entirety of Colorado, and so that we can, again, make better policy decisions and really focus our efforts where they can be most helpful. We've also had quite a bit happening in legislative session. It's been a little bit of a slower year for oil and gas, which is very helpful, but that doesn't mean there hasn't been anything that affects you all. It will end May 7th, but so far there have been 678 bills that have been presented in front of Congress. 68 of those would affect APCD in some way. And so far, we have testified for 6 of them. And in fact, we actually opposed a couple of them, which was an interesting place to be. Typically, the division doesn't oppose bills. And that's really because our job is to implement bills. We are here to say this is what it would take to implement. But these couple of bills, one around the publishing of emission records and another around greenhouse gas scope 1, 2, 3 reporting, really were just not something that the division felt were going to be helpful for all of you and a good use of our time and resources. And so that was something that we have participated in this year. Another thing that we're going to be working on is better oil and gas reporting. I think some of you have probably dealt with ONGAR in the past. If you know that acronym, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's been a challenge, and yet we have figured out how to actually accept those reports, but we want to put money, and assuming that the legislature comes through, we have money to actually kind of build that system from the ground up and really rethink how that works so that it will be a better tool for all of you, a better tool for us, and frankly, a better tool for the public. We'll be working on ozone over the next couple of years. Some of you might have seen that there's been a reclassification request that we are going to be pursuing to get redesignated from a serious non-attainment area to a severe non-attainment area for the North Front Range. That is specific to the 2015 70 part per billion standard. We are already severe for the 2008 75 part per billion standard. So it's a little bit of bringing them kind of both up to the same and giving ourselves a little more time to let things like greenhouse gas intensity and the midstream rule and NOx intensity and all of the work that we've done on transportation and electric cars and so on, to let those actually mature a bit rather than trying to do more rules right now in hopes that we could bring those emissions down. When we have these kind of longer acting rules on the books already, we want to let them mature, and that's what our goal is. So that's really the reason for moving forward with that. We'll also be really looking at air toxics, and this one is a hard one because it's a different way of looking at emissions and pollutants than what we have historically done. When you're thinking about global pollutants, it doesn't really matter where in the state they are, we just need to bring them down. When you're looking at regional pollutants, well, that's really focused on the North Front Range and bringing down pollutants that would contribute to ozone formation. But air toxics are about where people are and what kind of toxics they are getting exposed to on that very local level. And so it is going to require different kinds of conversations, different engagement, different thought processes. And so I really want to invite you all into those discussions with us so that we can, again, make good policy based on good information. So I'm just going to invite you once again to participate with us. My favorite thing in the world, even though it can be really difficult, is to bring people in that have disagreements, feed them baked goods, and make them talk to one another. And when we do that, we come up with better rules than we can come up on our own. And so I really want to invite you into that room, and please participate with us. I really appreciate everything that you do, all of your creativity, ingenuity. It's been amazing to work with you all. So thank you.
Thank you all very much. If you want to stay up here, we're going to have some Q&A for all of our agency panelists this morning. And then our next session will be coming up right after this. And I think Mr. Beamans, if you would go to the back of the room and get your microphone for the next session, that would be great.
Like 2 and 2.
Awesome. I think really what Kirby means is, do you have any questions for Director Davis?
I was reminded that Maria worked in the governor's office and is fully skilled to answer any wolf questions you might have.
Everyone knows what they need to know about state.
I guess so. Sure, we got a question right there.
No, the mic's not on. No.
Microphone. I'm bringing you a microphone right here.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Wendell Kuntz, Delta County. I got one question, and it could either be for Director Davis or Director Gibbs. SB 24230 directs 20% of oil and gas revenues to mitigate impacts, correct? And then you also just hired, was it 2 FTEs for the renewable, industrial renewable impact mitigation? Is there any funding from the renewable energy sector to help with that?
What was the question?
I think the question is, oil and gas industry is paying the fee to do that work under 230. Is there any sort of funding coming from renewable energy industry towards wildlife conservation?
The answer is no.
Why?
The bill didn't contemplate that, so that's not the bill that passed. So, yeah.
Kirby, thank you. Kirby gave me one more. My answer to that question would be why isn't it there? But HB 251323 that was recently pulled from consideration in front of the State House. We all had a lot of concerns about that one, especially stakeholdering to all the impacted individuals. One of the things that I was real concerned about that one in there is the lack of funding from the recreation industry to help with the mitigation funds. And for everybody to know, 1323 is a river recreation corridor management plan, which is great in concept, but there's not enough funding out of the recreation industry to help with that. From CPW and DNR, I would encourage you guys to reach out to the stakeholders. Kirby told me I got to shut up.
And maybe I'll just say really quick, thanks for bringing that bill up. Putting on my former county commissioner hat, I recognize that there was a lot of work that should have been done on the front end. We had a meeting just last week with CCI, as you know, and we need to gather input, a year before that bill was introduced. So that was a really important lesson for us working on that. But that bill had a lot more other provisions besides the river safety, as you know. It was helping to build up the recreational side of Jeff's team to help with planning and work with local communities and so forth. But I feel like there was a lot of information that wasn't really shared on the intent of the bill. So we have our work cut out for us, but I'd love to enlist your support, of how we bring people together to kind of get your input and other commissioners to try to improve upon it. And I'm confident we'll maybe package something differently for next year, but we would love to have commissioner support and buy-in on the front end. Yeah.